Christmas morning, 2025 was supposed to be a rare moment of peace for the WNBA front office, especially for Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. After a season filled with record-breaking viewership, locker room drama, and growing tensions over player conduct, the league desperately needed a quiet day. Families were opening gifts, the sports world was focused on NFL and NBA holiday games, and the WNBA hoped to escape the glare of controversy, if only for a few hours. But at exactly 10 a.m. Eastern, that fragile calm shattered. A notification appeared not from the league, but from Nike, showcasing a 30-second commercial titled "From Anywhere," starring Caitlyn Clark. It wasn't just an ad, it was a message, a seismic shift that would rock the WNBA to its core. The commercial wasn't typical sports marketing, high-budget cinematography, celebrity cameos from Travis Scott and the Kelsey brothers, and a cinematic feel more akin to a blockbuster movie than a sneaker ad, all put the spotlight squarely on Clark. The WNBA logo was barely visible, and the narrative was clear. Caitlyn Clark was more than a player, she was a phenomenon, independent of the league. For Commissioner Engelbert, who had built her career on maintaining the delicate ecosystem of the WNBA, seeing one player elevated to global stardom without the league's control was a direct threat. Suddenly, the holiday break wasn't peaceful. It was the beginning of a new crisis, one that would test the league's authority, its brand philosophy, and its ability to manage the sport's brightest stars. For decades, the WNBA has operated on a principle that every player is part of a collective, a shared identity where no single star overshadows the league. The brand was always the shield, promoting the idea that the success of the 144 players matters more than individual fame. Commissioner Engelbert championed this approach as a way to protect the league from volatility, ensuring that no single athlete could disrupt the balance. But the From Anywhere commercial turned that philosophy on its head. In 30 seconds, Nike had effectively declared that Caitlyn Clark existed in a league of her own, separate from the collective, separate from the WNBA itself. The imagery, the narrative, the sheer spectacle of it all made the league's socialist-style marketing approach feel outdated overnight. Inside the WNBA front office, the reaction was intense. Emails flew, phone lines burned, and executives tried to comprehend the full impact of a single player outshining the institution. It wasn't just about marketing, it was about control. By elevating Clark independently, Nike had implicitly told the league, "You don't own the star, you facilitate her platform." This realization hit every decision-maker like a shockwave. The commercial highlighted the growing gap between individual player influence and league authority, exposing vulnerabilities in a system that had long relied on unity over stardom. For fans, insiders, and players alike, it marked the start of a new era where one individual's brand could redefine the game. If you're finding this breakdown fascinating, make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rest of this deep dive into Caitlyn Clark's impact on the WNBA. The From Anywhere commercial didn't just showcase Caitlyn Clark as a basketball player. It positioned her as a global cultural icon. Surrounded by top-tier celebrities and immersed in cinematic visuals, Clark's persona transcended the court. The ad's messaging, "Can you make it from here?" From Anywhere wasn't about the WNBA, the Indiana Fever, or any team affiliation. It was about Clark herself, proving she could dominate any space, any moment, any audience. For a league that had built its reputation on collective identity and shared narratives, this singular spotlight was unprecedented. Fans weren't watching the WNBA, they were watching the Caitlyn Clark show, and the ratings, shares, and online reactions proved just how magnetic her personal brand had become. The cultural significance extended beyond the United States. Social media platforms lit up worldwide, with fans praising the high production value, celebrity involvement, and cinematic storytelling. In one swoop, Nike had turned Clark into a global figure, capable of driving engagement independently of league schedules or team allegiances. For the WNBA, this was both a blessing and a challenge. Clark's fame promised new audiences, sponsorship opportunities, and a modern image of the league. But it also exposed a growing dependence on individual stars rather than the institution itself. Commissioner Engelbert faced a reality she had long feared. The game's brightest star could now operate on a scale far beyond the league's control. The timing of the From Anywhere commercial couldn't have been more explosive. Just weeks before, the basketball world had been buzzing over the launch of the new unrivaled league, founded by Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Keir. Marketed as a player-first, equity-driven platform, it aimed to keep top talent in the U.S. and generate revenue for veterans who had carried the league for years. The WNBA publicly supported the initiative, hoping to strengthen ties with its players while fostering off-season engagement. Caitlyn Clark, however, chose a different path. Despite reportedly receiving an offer exceeding $1 million for a short-term commitment, a figure far above her rookie salary, she opted out, prioritizing rest and personal pursuits over immediate exposure. Then came the commercial. In a single 30-second ad, Clark's brand overshadowed the unrivaled league's launch campaign, generating 6 times more views in 24 hours than the entire roster reveal combined. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. Clark didn't need the unrivaled league to stay relevant. The league needed her. For the WNBA, this public demonstration of influence was both a revelation and a warning. It highlighted the power dynamics that had quietly shifted. A single player could now command attention, sponsorships, and cultural clout in ways the league itself could not. The offseason strategy, designed to amplify the collective, suddenly felt vulnerable to the star power of an individual. The financial contrast revealed by Clark's commercial was impossible to ignore. In the ad, she appeared in high-end, custom gear, surrounded by celebrities, in a production that reportedly cost millions, far more than most WNBA broadcasts. Meanwhile, her official league salary remained a modest $76,000 a year, highlighting a stark gap between the money she earned independently and what the league could offer. For fans, sponsors, and team owners, the commercial broadcast an uncomfortable truth. The WNBA itself wasn't the destination of value Clark was. Every frame of the ad emphasized that the real revenue-driving star existed outside of the league's control, and this put the commissioner and the front office in a precarious position. The implications went beyond perception. Team owners reportedly reached out to Engelbert, questioning why they weren't seeing a slice of the commercial's financial explosion. The ad also fueled the WNBPA's bargaining power, giving players a visible benchmark for their market value. What once was a controlled environment, where the league dictated sponsorships and promotions, had now inverted. Clark, with her independent deals, set the terms. For the commissioner, this created a financial embarrassment that undercut both credibility and authority. The league's image as a professional, aspirational organization was suddenly overshadowed by a single 30-second spot, reminding everyone that the money and global attention followed Clark, not the WNBA. The From Anywhere commercial didn't just rattle the front office, it shook the locker rooms. A.A. Wilson, a 3-time MVP and current face of the league, had recently released her own Nike ad. But when Clark's high-budget spot dropped, side-by-side comparisons were inevitable. Fans and analysts quickly criticized Wilson's commercial as simple and low effort, sparking debates online about whether Nike was favoring Clark over established veterans. The perception alone was enough to create tension, validating long-held suspicions among some players that the corporate machine could selectively elevate stars. Engelbert recognized the danger immediately. Resentment could turn into on-court drama, threatening both team cohesion and player safety. Beyond Wilson, the commercial sent shockwaves throughout the veteran roster. Players who had spent years building their careers within the league suddenly felt overshadowed by a rookie whose fame seemed untethered from WNBA structures. The ad effectively rewrote the hierarchy, showing that external endorsements could now outweigh league accomplishments. For the commissioner, this was a psychological minefield. Managing competitive balance, respecting veteran contributions, and keeping the locker room unified all became exponentially harder. One misstep could transform off-court tensions into tangible on-court consequences, amplifying the stakes for the 2026 season. Caitlyn Clark's rise highlights a shifting power balance that Commissioner Engelbert now has to navigate carefully. Traditionally, the league dictated the narrative. Contracts, sponsorships, media exposure all flowed through its structure, but Clark's commercial flipped the script. Suddenly, the player had leverage over the league itself. She wasn't just a participant in the WNBA. She was an independent force, capable of influencing sponsorships, fan engagement, and media coverage on a global scale. For a commissioner whose authority rested on controlling the ecosystem, this inversion was deeply unsettling. The league could no longer assume that rules, promotions, or collective bargaining agreements alone would keep its top stars aligned. This power dynamic also forced a reevaluation of how the league manages its talent. Players now had a model for success outside traditional WNBA structures. demonstrating that personal brand building could eclipse institutional affiliation. The implications were enormous. The WNBA could be seen less as a destination for stars and more as a stepping stone. Engelbert faced the daunting task of maintaining the league's integrity while acknowledging the individual value of its marquee players. One wrong decision, one perceived slight, could accelerate a talent exodus or breed resentment, leaving the league vulnerable to both internal disruption and external competition. One of the most striking aspects of the From Anywhere commercial was what it left out: the WNBA's history. Previous marketing campaigns carefully honored league legends, highlighting Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, and Sue Bird to create a sense of lineage and continuity. But Clark's ad bypassed that tradition entirely. There was no passing of the torch, no acknowledgement of those who had built the league from the ground up. Instead, Nike validated Clark with male cultural icons Travis Scott, the Kelsey brothers, and other mainstream celebrities, sending a clear message. Clark's influence and status exist independently of the WNBA's historical hierarchy. For Engelbert and the league's veterans, this was a symbolic blow, signaling that even the most storied players and achievements could be overshadowed by a new generation's marketability. The decision to focus entirely on Clark also fueled generational tension within the league. Fans of the WNBA's history, alumni, and longtime supporters felt alienated, while a younger audience gravitated toward the superstar appeal of Clark. For the commissioner, this created a precarious balancing act: how to celebrate the present without undermining the past. Marketing choices like these can reshape fan loyalty and player relations, highlighting the fragility of the WNBA's collective identity. In one commercial, the league's carefully cultivated narrative of shared achievement and historical respect was challenged, forcing Engelbert to confront the evolving reality of player-driven influence in professional sports. The From Anywhere commercial wasn't just a U.S. phenomenon, it carried a global message. The ad's tagline implied universality, showing snow-covered courts and distant locations, signaling that Clark's reach extended beyond national borders. Yet, in a twist of irony, Nike failed to release the associated merchandise internationally. Fans in Brazil, France, Spain, and China flooded social media with complaints, demanding access to the shoes and gear. While this was technically a logistics issue for Nike, the backlash reflected poorly on the WNBA, reinforcing a perception that the league lacked the infrastructure to support global expansion. Engelbert's vision for international growth, Toronto teams, London games, and global branding felt undermined by a campaign that alienated exactly the fans she hoped to attract. The misstep also amplified the league's image as uncoordinated and amateurish, contrasting sharply with Clark's polished, high-budget personal brand. International fans' frustration underscored a growing gap between the WNBA's ambitions and its operational reality. Even as Clark gained global fame, the league struggled to translate that attention into tangible growth or revenue. For the commissioner, the challenge was clear. If the WNBA couldn't capitalize on its stars' international influence, the league risked losing control over the narrative and allowing private entities like Nike to dictate the terms of women's basketball on the world stage. The From Anywhere commercial wasn't just a marketing triumph, it was a warning shot. It forced the WNBA to confront an uncomfortable truth: Caitlyn Clark's influence now exceeds the league's reach. Questions that once revolved around whether she was good enough for the WNBA have been replaced by a more urgent concern. Is the WNBA big enough for her? With Nike willing to invest millions and global audiences clamoring for her content, Clark has the power to shape the future of women's basketball on her own terms. For Engelbert, the stakes are higher than ever. Every decision, from salaries to marketing, from league expansion to collective bargaining, must now account for a star who has become both a global icon and a symbol of the shifting power dynamics in the sport. As the 2026 season approaches, the league faces a pivotal moment. The WNBA can either adapt, embracing the new landscape where star players hold unprecedented influence, or risk being overshadowed by the very athletes who made it successful. Caitlyn Clark's rise represents opportunity and challenge in equal measure, and her story will define not just one season, but the next chapter of the league itself. For fans, players, and executives alike, the message is clear. The game has changed, and Clark's impact will be felt everywhere from the court to the global stage. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss our deep dives into the biggest stories in sports.